And welcome to Illini Drive here on WPGU 1071. Ori Benatar with Will Gerard, Jake Hassan, Tommy Polson, and Jade Hilton for another edition of your favorite Illini sports talk show where we discuss the games, we break it down, and we tell it like it is, as it was a very, very crazy, hectic
we're
weekend.
Not lying? I thought we were lying.
I thought
that was our thing now.
Yeah, I thought it was too, but I guess it's
This
not.
is shocking news
Yeah,
to me.
we're now starting to tell the truth. This is the date. Mark it, December 4th, where we start to bring
December 4th
you
is when we started
real,
telling the truth. to our
real
listeners.
opinions.
Well, I mean, so we're gonna talk about JFK again, then, right?
No.
So we're
No.
We're telling the truth here.
No.
You're telling me this isn't your favorite JFK podcast in the world or show?
I don't think it counts as a JFK podcast when we
I
have
know we mentioned it once.
Jake yelling about it for 2 minutes. So
Did not yell
you got into it. I think
Yes,
that's the main
because I'm right.
thing in there. Okay, sure. But one thing that
I was talking JFK for the day.
One thing I think we can all agree on, and that is definitely right, is last night's Illini men's basketball game was crazy.
Stinky.
It was a sad ending, but it was a emotional game, roller coaster ride. It was one of the best basketball games I've ever seen in person. Would you say also, Tommy?
Yeah,
it's up there.
I definitely agree. It was. I haven't been to many cool basketball games, I guess, but yeah, no, definitely last night was. I mean, especially with how we were talking, the first half is down 19, 45-26 for how that second half went and ended up going. I mean, it was insane.
I mean, that's the only word to describe it. Crazy, something you couldn't write.
Yeah.
Illinois down by 19 at the first half. At one point, down by 22 in the second half. Came all the way back. You know, Brad Underwood must have had some serious. It could have been motivational. It could have been threatening. Who knows? I mean, the way he was.
Well, let's not get into that.
No, but I mean, the way
had
he.
bandages on his hand after
Yeah,
he came out of the locker room.
he
I
punched a
love that
trash.
man
He
so
punched
much.
a trash can and had bandages. He snapped his clipboard in half.
He's such a football guy.
Oh, totally. He would make.
My favorite moment from yesterday is that he literally sent out his players 8 minutes earlier than they should have. Like right as the 3-1 was starting, and had them re-go through their pregame warm-up
Yep.
from start to finish. Fletch is out there screaming at him, like just saying, like, "What are you doing?" Underwood comes out like 5 minutes late because he had to get bandaged up.
Yep.
Like, tell me this guy shouldn't be coaching Alabama football.
Oh my God, he should be a defensive coordinator
I love it
somewhere.
so much.
He should be in a cage match somewhere, just
Oh my
like
God,
cracking
God.
skulls.
I like him though as the Illini men's basketball coach,
Fantastic.
despite
Oh, I mean,
the 3
yeah,
straight
I
losses.
want to keep him, but
Yeah, I think everyone in Illini Nation wants to keep him.
we want to keep him, but we're definitely missing out on some content.
I think
here.
he could just coach both teams. I think Lovey should team up with him.
All right, they'll have Brad
That'd be
Underwood as
such
the
that'd be such an awesome duo.
co-defensive
That 1-2
coordinator
punch.
Oh my God,
and head
I'm so
basketball
in on
coach.
this.
But you really have to admire the team's effort because honestly,
Oh,
I thought they
God,
were going to
yeah.
totally fold over in the second half,
Yeah.
and that we saw the opposite.
Yeah, I was thinking to myself, can they pull off the impossible and avoid a third straight loss? No way. They're down by 19. Their starters combined for 7 points in the first half. Their starting guards, Mark Smith and Tijon Lucas, had 3 points combined for the whole game. Down by 22 at one point. They were just hitting shots. Then there was that stretch. Aaron Jordan hits a deep three. Michael Finke baseline slams it over 2 guys. Aaron Jordan hits another 3. He was 3 of 4 last night. 66% shooting from downtown this season thus far after 9 games. Still number 1 in the country. He's been the story of the season. Then towards the end of the fourth quarter, Illini pick up a 2-point lead, 4 seconds left, and then DeMonte Williams chucks the inbounds pass, full court to nobody. Maryland get a chance to tie. They do on a Bruno Fernando tip-in. And then Maryland wins by 1 after Mark Allstork's foul on Anthony Cowan on the last shot in overtime, which would have taken the game, which would have won the game for Maryland as it was tied 91 all at that point. Maryland winning by 1. What's the one moment in that game that the Illini players are going to look back on? It's got to be between, for me, there's 3 of them. Is it that first half, Williams inbounds play, or the Allstork foul that you can think is the one moment of the game where if we did it differently, Illinois would have won?
All 3 of those are obviously huge. I think that one that you didn't mention that I think could honestly be the one is Tijon throwing up that lob to try and get Allstork that little dunk at the end. And
Yeah.
End up airmailing it. I mean, that happens. It's a 4-point game. You just take a nice little jump shot, hit a layup, don't try and go for the fancy finish. I mean, obviously there's a few different moments where it kind of crumbled and shouldn't have happened the way it did. But I think that that's one of those for sure where it's like, you look back on it, it's like, why did I throw that? Why didn't I just drive in the rest of the way, finish that layup? Or why didn't I just throw a nice little bounce pass, let him finish inside? It just didn't end up like it kind of drew it out. But I mean, there's a lot of moments, and I think they can learn a lot from this game.
I mean, I think if you're going to choose between those three, it has to be the inbounds pass. But like Tommy said, you could pick any of them. I mean, just every single one of those scenarios just should have been done differently. I mean, but when you talk about the first half, you also have to talk about the second half and like the comeback too, because those go hand in hand. But I mean, just the inbounds, that was so ugly.
Yeah, it was a bad inbounds play. People will question. I personally think that Allstorp maybe went in too hard on Cowan on that last foul. If he sort of just stood his ground and put the hands up, maybe it wouldn't be a foul. But then you're running the risk of their best player, who had 25 points at that point in time, probably making the shot to win the game for Maryland in overtime.
I don't know what you do there, because that's a great look, honestly. I mean, if like only a few feet away from the basket.
And he was leaning in, too. And no one could guard him.
If he does, like you said, if he stands his ground, just goes hands straight. If he just goes vertical, then he gets ripped apart if he makes the shot then, too. So, I mean, it's a lose-lose.
I also still don't think it was necessarily a foul. I think that the way that game was called, I do not think that's a foul.
Yeah.
I understand by definition catching that much body really would be, but that wasn't called all game. Plus, you have to think about, I didn't even think about it in terms of moments. If that goaltend on Tijon was called earlier in the game, I mean, or on Trent, I think it was, but...
Yeah, Trent went for a layup, hit the backboard. Maryland guy blocked it. He got fouled. And it should have been an and-one goaltend.
Right, and Trent ended up only hitting one of those free throws. That's the difference in the game right there.
Yeah, to keep talking a little bit about negative moments and things like that, this will be the week that Illinois fans remember at the end of the season as the week where the refs sucked. There were a lot of bad calls in the Wake Forest game, and the Northwestern game, and the Maryland game. Maybe some that could have changed the outcome, but I don't necessarily think there were any of those really key calls that could have changed the outcome. Maybe that goaltending call on Trent Frazier. But yeah, man.
The 6-pointer against Wake Forest.
That too.
One thing I'll say is I think that's going to be like a continued trend throughout the entire season.
Oh,
I
goodness.
mean, just looking at, I looked at some tweets from Maryland fans, and they seem to be equally as upset with the refs at times. I saw a couple of tweets where there were screenshots of guys with their foot out of bounds, and there was no call.
Sturgeon was pissed all game. I mean, he even said after it, he said, yeah, I know most of that game we weren't getting some of the calls we wanted, and eventually we did get the one we wanted at the end. I saw right after Underwood was arguing for it to be a jump ball. I mean, I personally think that was where it should have went, but again, it could have gone either way.
So Illinois basketball with 3 straight losses now. I guess to move now towards the positives, because after a loss like that, you think of all the moments where, they could have done this better, they could have done that. I think there's a lot of positives to take away from these 3 losses. The fact that Illinois got 3 competitive games this early on in the season, I think that's going to help build a lot of character, because Brad Underwood said in the post-game press conference, how these players have fear, and they're used to being in a losing culture in terms of a locker room with the years of John Gross, where Illinois wasn't making the tournament. And Underwood wants them to, take the moment in the palm of their hands and kind of run with it and not be afraid to take that last shot or make that pass and just keep a cool head. Do you think that these 3 losses are going to help Illinois start to get a little bit more mature and make those smart late game decisions?
Oh, yeah. I think they'll definitely show an immense improvement throughout the entire season, just with it being such a young group. I mean, last night, Mark Smith didn't do very well, but we kind of saw the emergence of Trent Frazier. He had 10 assists. Underwood had nothing but good things to say after the game. And even if you look at the very start of the game where Illinois was down 10-0 and he put in an entirely new group of 5 off the bench, and those guys were able to create a little energy and get things going. I think it just shows there's a lot of depth with this team, and that guys are still kind of figuring out their roles. I mean, when we were talking about this team before the season started, Aaron Jordan wasn't even a guy who was mentioned in our conversation, and now he's one of the best shooters in the nation. So I think
the best
we'll
shooter in the
continue to
nation.
see those type of outbreaks throughout the season.
Yeah, Will, I mentioned to you yesterday when we were sitting there at the game, I feel like every time Aaron Jordan is shooting a 3-ball right now, I think it's going in. It looks so nice. His shot's been so quick. Even contested, he's just splashing on everybody. It's insane. I never would have guessed that Aaron Jordan's doing what he's doing this season.
No one could have guessed.
He's doing it like he's breathing, as easy as he breathes.
Yeah.
And like Will said, that's someone we might have mentioned, twice when we were talking about basketball before the season? Maybe, if that.
This is a guy who had 27 total points all of last season. He beat that after 2 games. Now he leads the country in 3-point percentage. He pretty much makes 3 threes a game. He usually misses 1 or 2 a game. And he comes in clutch also on defense, getting steals and making guys miss and forcing guys to the wrong side. I think a lot of people on that, I thought the bench was the real hero of last night's game and also kind of a Friday's game because Mark Smith had a bad week. He didn't play well. Michael Finke also was kind of slow. That dunk, sure, he had, but Michael Finke did have a great week. The most consistent starters this week were LaRon Black and probably Mark Allstork. Mark Allstork really became a Big Ten player this week. Played decent against Northwestern, had a really good game against Maryland, had that experience to take those shots and drive down the lane to help Illinois give them another chance to win in overtime. Trent Frazier, marquee game, 11 points, phenomenal. He was all over the floor. And the first player that Brad Underwood mentioned in the press conference, though, Spicy G, who only played 8 minutes. He came in after the starters got benched for a good 5 or 6 minutes after being down 10-0 to the first 4. Played good defense, got himself his first career Illini field goal. DeMonte Williams played pretty well, too. So,
Boyd Beden is one player in particular who I think might have a much bigger role by the end of the season, just because I feel like it takes a little longer for freshman big men to progress, and he's a guy who doesn't necessarily have the most experience, but with going against LaRon and Finke on a daily basis, I think we'll start to see his development because he is a real athletic player, and just from watching him in practice, he's a guy who he dunks everything. I mean, he really can jump out of the gym.
Yeah, that bench mob is what we call it. Full of athletic talent. Frazier and Williams are athletically just gifted. Ebo is athletically gifted too. Aaron Jordan, also a very athletic player, might not have the best hops on the team, someone like Trent Frazier, DeMonte Williams, but defensively and shooting the ball, he's tremendous. So
there aren't many teams in the country who can really guard the full length of the floor like the way Illinois does.
No, and two things that kind of Illinois have finally found. I think Underwood's found his 9-man rotation plus Ebo occasionally, and also when the Maryland coach Turgeon came to speak at the press conference before Underwood, he was saying how tough it was to face Illinois' defense. So now this team kind of has that identity amongst Big Ten coaches. Here's Illinois, we got to play them, and guess what? It's gonna be tough because they're gonna be on defense and they're gonna guard you tight, and then if you give up a turnover. Maryland had 25 of those. Illinois is just going to run down the floor, get a 3, get a layup. So I think Illinois finally has found that identity under the Underwood era that they're looking for after these 2 overtime Big Ten losses.
Yeah, I mean, it's clear they're buying into his system. I mean, he preached it all offseason, but obviously he's got great offensive Underwood, I should say, has great offensive numbers in his years of coaching. But I mean, it all stems from defense. And Turgeon was saying in his press conference, the Maryland coach was saying that there's no other team in the Big Ten that's going to pressure you like Illinois will because they're all over the ball. They're creating turnovers. He was saying, even Turgeon, again, this is just his praise. I mean, he was saying that he doesn't think there's any other teams that will create the pressure or as much turnovers that Illinois will, especially under Underwood. And I mean, it's definitely showing. I mean, they got a top team in the Big Ten to force 25 turnovers last night. So, I mean,
yeah, and the Big Ten season getting off to a bit of a weird start. Illinois is the only Big Ten team after this first weekend of conference play that is 0-2. There are a couple more games. Ohio State's playing Michigan tonight. The only 2-0 team in conference is Purdue, who beat Maryland and Northwestern, who are both 1-1, who got their one win both against the Illini. I think overall these early Big Ten games are a success for every team, especially for Illinois. It gives them a challenge early on in the season, right?
It's a wake-up call. I mean, they, for the most part, just breezed through those first 6 games. So, I mean, this just wakes you up. I mean, and like Tommy said, they're getting that identity now. So it's just overall a good thing, yeah.
But the rest of the schedule seems like it's kind of easy. Very similar to the first 6 games. This week, Wednesday they play Austin Peay, and then they go to Vegas to face the Runnin' Rebels on Saturday. UNLV is probably their second toughest non-conference game after Missouri. So how many wins are we? If Illinois can get, I mean, with 6 non-conference games left, are we saying 6-0 and they entered that game against Minnesota on January 3rd, 12-3?
Yeah, I don't think they lose. I think had Porter been playing still, MPJ for Mizzou, I think that's tougher to call a win if they have him, but I don't know. They haven't looked great so far. Tillman's been all right so far. But, I mean, I think that overall this team's going to do a lot in these next couple weeks. And they might not go 6-0 necessarily. I think that I'd expect at worst 4-2, though.
In games like the one we saw with Northwestern and Maryland, I think that'll kind of prepare them for what the bragging rights game,
exactly.
Where it's such a high-energy game with, fans on both sides, real rowdy crowd.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the final point we should make here before we take a break. That's probably for you, Will, I guess, since you've lived here your whole life and you grew up 2005, all that, and we all saw it. When was the last time you saw a State Farm Center or Assembly Hall crowd, whichever you prefer, that excited, that loud, and cheering their team on that much?
That's really hard to say. Definitely not in my time here as a student, really. I would say probably that first year under Gross when there was a lot of energy around the program, and that was a team that eventually made the NCAA tournament. I remember I actually had the chance to go to that game where they beat Indiana, and I turned it down because I was like, yeah, nah, like they're gonna get blown out, whatever. So like that's still kind of like the most memorable moment we've seen over the past 5 or 6 years now, and that's kind of what everyone else in the program still talks about as well.
And I think this will be the first game in the Underwood era that everyone's going to talk about in terms of the atmosphere. Sure, we lost by 1 point, but man, they were excited to watch their team come back and almost pull that win off.
Yeah, but at the same time, it wouldn't even surprise me if this is a footnote of the season by the end, depending on how Big Ten play goes, really.
That's what it's going to come down to. And they don't have an easy start to Big Ten. Minnesota, Michigan, Iowa, Nebraska. The next real home game, I mentioned before the Maryland game on Twitter, really the next real home game for Illinois is going to be against Michigan State on January the 22nd because Austin Peay and Longwood, sure, Orange Crush will be there. It's not going to be as big of a crowd against Maryland, obviously. Yeah. Students are starting to get ready for finals. Then they've got 2 home games in that winter break finals period against the mighty Grand Canyon Lopes on December the 30th, and then they host Iowa on the 11th, so no Orange Crush at those games. Next time we get a big-time Illinois basketball game at home with Orange Crush is not going to be until they face the third-ranked Spartans. So it's going to be a really long time until Illinois is going to see a crowd like that in this season.
Yeah, it's tough. Obviously, even without necessarily that big of a crowd, it's still huge to play at home and be able to have that night of sleep in your own bed, all that stuff. But, it's going to be a tough little stretch for them, especially Minnesota's been good this year. You said Michigan State. Obviously the Big Ten as a whole might not be up to where they were expected to be so far. Wisconsin, huge surprise. I did not expect them to be like this. But
yeah, they're terrible.
Yeah, Ohio State blew them out.
Yeah, and Ohio State's not any good either.
They're not bad this year, I feel like.
They're okay. I don't think they're in a very similar stage as Illinois.
With Holtman.
Yeah, but except they have some veterans who are like marquee players like Jayshawn Tate and Bates Diop. So Ohio State, Illinois, I'd say they're on a very level playing field.
Yeah, it's a tough little stretch though, but I still expect them to do well in this. I think Underwood has done a good job of getting his guys ready, using these games like the finish Northwestern, using the finish Maryland to kind of build off of, say, hey, look, this is what you did here. Just as teaching moments. And I think that's huge, especially for a young team like this. And going forward, it should be all right, I think.
Despite the 3-game losing streak, it seems Illini Nation, ourselves, and everyone else feeling very positive about Illinois men's basketball as you're listening to Illini Drive here on WPGU 107.1, brought to you by the Illinois Fighting Illini. For tickets and information on the Illini, visit fightingillini.com or call 1-866-ILLINI-1. Once again, fightingillini.com or call 1-866-ILLINI-1 for more ticket information. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll hear our weekly Illini recap from Matthew Goldstein and talk a little bit about some sweet Illini volleyball action. We return to Illini Drive right here on WPGU 107.1.
You're watching Illini Drive on Urbana Public Television. Tune in Monday nights at 6 p.m. to listen live on WPGU 107.1.
Good evening. I am Matthew Goldstein. Time for another edition of the Illini Weekend Recap. Women's volleyball started off the NCAA tournament in Seattle with a 5-set win over the Hawaii Warriors. Sophomore Jacqueline Quaid led the Illini with 15 kills, and senior Brandy Donnelly became the second player in Illini volleyball history to register 2,000 digs in her 4-year career with Illinois. The Illini followed that up with a 5-set upset win over 8C Washington to move to the Sweet 16 for the 5th time in 7 years. Illinois will face Michigan State on Friday in the regional semifinals in University Park in Pennsylvania. After a 47-point loss on Thursday to Virginia Tech, the Illini women's basketball bounced back with a 63-47 win over Memphis. Senior Kennedy Cattenhead provided 15 points, and junior Alex Whittinger had 14 points, 10 rebounds, and 4 blocks to improve Illinois to 6-4 this season. Finally, wrestling lost to 7th-ranked Iowa on Friday by 1 point. Despite the team's loss, Isaiah Martinez picked up his 101st career win. That was your Illini Weekend Recap. I am Matthew Goldstein, Daily Illini Sports.
And welcome back to Illini Drive here. Thank you, Matthew, for that Illini recap over what was a really eventful weekend in Illini athletics. Really crazy. Starting off with the 7-point loss for men's basketball against Wake Forest. Women's basketball lost by 47 against Virginia Tech. But the main thing, volleyball, is on themselves a pretty nice tournament run. In Seattle, beat Hawaii, the Rainbow Wahine, as the announcers kept referring to it, in 5 sets. The first. Rainbow Wahine is their other sort of nickname. You could say the Rainbow Warriors.
What's a Wahine?
Wahine, I think, is the sort of Hawaiian way of saying warrior.
That's wild.
I'm
like
not really sure.
I'm all in on that.
So they say the Rainbow Wahine.
We're stealing it.
Okay.
It's ours now.
So Illinois beat Hawaii in 5 sets. Then they played their 3rd consecutive 5-set match against 8-seeded Washington and won. And the Illini are back in the Sweet 16. They missed the tournament last year in what was Kevin Hambly's final year with the Illini, while Kevin Hambly's leading Stanford, cruising them to the Sweet 16. They're going to play Wisconsin on Friday. Illini taking on Michigan State on Friday. This is pretty exciting stuff.
I have to ask you a question. Is there any way that Illinois will see Hambly again, or are they like on opposite sides of the bracket?
Oh, God. The only way Illinois can play Kevin Hambly is in the final. So
I'm all in on that.
the likely opponents for the Illini on their way to a rematch with Kevin Hambly's Stanford. So they have to beat Michigan State, a team that they lost in straight sets to. Then they most likely would play number 1 seed Penn State, who's lost 1 game all season. They play Missouri in the other regional semifinal in Illinois' bracket. Their Final Four match would probably be against Kentucky or Nebraska, who are number 4 and number 5 respectively. And then their finals either against someone like Texas or Stanford or Minnesota. So it's a rough road for Illinois. If they won this national championship, it would be fully deserved because they would probably have to beat the top 4 or 5 teams in the country to get there. But one step at a time. This Michigan State team is solid. They won in straight sets against Missouri State, upset a number 9 seed in Creighton in 4 sets, and now they're getting ready to play Illinois. 6 Big Ten teams in the Sweet 16. That is the most of any conference. Nice to see an Illini team make the Sweet 16 of a tournament. It's been a while.
Besides golf.
Well, but there is no really Sweet 16 in golf. There's just
golf is
sort
the
of a...
best.
No, golf is the best.
Still a golf school.
But
golf school.
a nice 64-team bracket, yeah.
Was it? So it was the same like format necessarily?
Huge.
In what golf?
It's like the
it's basketball.
I'm saying volleyball.
Yeah, 64 teams.
That's awesome.
Same format, yeah.
That was really cool.
That's a huge accomplishment. I mean, obviously you said it's a tough road going forward, but I mean, even making it this far, especially in the first year with Thomas, is a huge achievement.
And at what point do you start talking about momentum with them? Like they just had a huge upset. They played well against Hawaii too.
Oh, they have a ton of momentum. They ended the season winning a 5-setter against Ohio State, who's a pretty solid team. They are out, though, of the tournament. They didn't even make the tournament, actually, which is very surprising. Ohio State is usually pretty solid, but 5-set win against Ohio State, 5-set win against Hawaii, who only lost 7 games, then the 5-set upset win against Washington. They won the first, lost the second and third, came back to win the 4th and the 5th. Jordan Poulter had an insane 2 games. She had probably like 80 assists or something nuts. Brandy Donnelly played really well. Jackie Quaid obviously led the team in kills, as she always does. And if Chris Thomas can just hype up his players again in this Michigan State game, I think the Illini have a legitimate chance of beating them.
I mean, they're obviously feeling good now.
For sure. I mean, they're running on pure adrenaline. They've had the most upsets of anyone else in the tournament. They're probably the biggest underdog remaining in the NCAA tournament.
What was
now.
their highest ranking this year?
Illinois' highest ranking. They were like a low, early 20s team.
Yes, I mean, even to make it to the top 16 is huge.
Huge. It's a huge accomplishment for Chris Thomas. It's a huge accomplishment for the program. Illinois volleyball has been this consistent, as Matthew mentioned, 5th time in 7 years they made the Sweet 16. In the last 8 times the Illini have made the NCAA volleyball tournament, they've always made the Sweet 16. Haven't been to the Elite 8, though, since 2011. So it's been a while since they've gotten that far. But the Illini could face all Big Ten opponents on their way potentially to the final. But that's a real stretch to say final. I don't expect Illinois, though, to beat Michigan State per se initially, but I think they can keep it close. There might be another 5-setter in the works, and then the Illini either get a bragging rights regional final against Missouri, or they'd play the best team in the country in Penn State. But either way, this is everyone's been thinking about football and everyone's upset about the 3 losses in basketball, Illinois volleyball is always something to look forward to, and they're back after missing the tournament last year.
For sure.
No? Okay.
I mean, that's exciting because I know, with it being Thomas's first year here, I know, initially people were like, oh, what's going to happen with Hambly leaving and everything, but, this team, they really stepped it up, especially the way that they improved over the season. Because I remember having Megan on the show early in the year, and she was kind of like, oh, they're off to a bit of a rough start right now. They're still kind of getting together.
Megan's English.
That's my best impersonation of
English
Megan.
now.
But
That's your Megan impression?
I don't know.
I like it. It's funny.
But even so,
Keep doing it.
and then I remember when she came on a second time, she was like, "Oh yeah, this team is on a roll." So they've done really well, and I'm excited to watch the game and see if they can make it to the Elite Eight.
Yeah, and the game will actually be on a legitimate streaming site. The Hawaii game got some
Shots fired. Ori Benatar coming at you, Washington announcers.
No, yeah, announcer, not very enthusiastic.
This is our new
Yeah,
thing.
no,
We're starting beef with the
love
announcers of other teams.
the Hawaii announcers.
I'll go in on it too. She stunk.
I won't go.
Stinks.
I won't go that far. That joke is dead. I'm sorry.
Stinks.
Okay. Anyways, I like the Hawaii announcers.
Yeah, I just want to say this. No offense to Washington. I remember seeing. I didn't get to watch the whole game, but I just saw the last couple highlights and just hearing it was like, oh, and Illinois wins. Washington loses the game.
She was a Washington volleyball alum.
You still gotta kind of.
Still got to bring the heat.
I know.
Bring that heat.
But I'm surprised that the number 8 volleyball school in the country, they can't get 2 students that want to announce a
That's what I'm
national
saying,
volleyball game.
Yeah.
I would jump on that and be like, hey, you need someone? I've never called a volleyball game.
You
I'll
would do
it.
splendidly.
I hope I would. But this game against Michigan State is on ESPN3. So we get a nice little a stream that most people are going to be able to watch. We'll get professional announcers for the game. It's going to be hyped up in Pennsylvania at University Park.
Illinois volleyball back.
It's not a big deal, but kind of a big deal, but huge deal. Big stuff happening.
We're gonna act like it's not a big deal, but it actually is such
huge.
a big deal.
Yeah.
This is momentous.
So wait, so we beat Michigan State. Who are the next 2? What would the possibility be for the Elite Eight?
It would be Penn State.
It's for sure Penn
No
State.
way Missouri beats Penn
We
State.
played Penn State, twice this year?
I think we played them twice. I think we lost both times.
Straight sets both times. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what? They're getting cocky. I'm feeling it.
And I'll say
You're-
this:
give it to me.
the second time that they played
Give me
Penn State,
We want Bama.
second time they played Penn State, it was at the end of a 3-game losing streak. So that's fine. And then the first time was an anomaly. That's it. We're good. It was early in the season. Upset City. Let's go.
It's Penn State.
Upset
man.
City.
Penn State is the Bama of volleyball. Literally.
Yeah, I just said
Yeah,
it. We
that's-
want Bama.
Yeah,
do it.
literally, they're the Bama of volleyball. So,
me Bama.
I think either way, this is overachieving for the Illini getting into the top 16. To get to the Elite Eight would be incredible if they got a top 8. They would for sure be the lowest remaining team. I think they are the lowest remaining seed in the tournament as it is. I mean,
Underdogs. Let's go.
yeah, we'll see if they can.
The disrespect.
We'll see if they can keep riding the underdog train, and hopefully we'll be talking more about them next week because Michigan State game on Friday. If they win, they would play the regional final on Saturday, and then the Final Four and championship games are going to be December the 14th and the 16th, right before, during the weekend where we all start to freak out about finals and right before we actually freak out for our final exams. So we'll see.
You say we, but I'm feeling pretty confident.
I'm
about
also
final season.
nothing matters,
all
so
in.
there's no reason to freak out.
Yeah, no, it's survive in advance. It's survive in advance at this point. It's get those final projects in, get your studying in, and we're feeling all right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not feeling. I'm in a little bit of denial about my finals, but it'll happen, and then it'll just I'll do my best. That's kind of how you always have to do. But
Why freak out? The sun goes down at 4 o'clock and everything's just darkness. Nothing's okay.
it's all right. We'll spring forward again.
Everything stinks.
No. We're gonna take another break here. When we come back, we'll get
It got real sad
Yeah.
for a second.
A little too nihilist.
we'll take another break. We'll
That's
get a
so
score
on brand
update
for
from
me. Let's
Jade.
go.
And then we will have our final thoughts here when we return to Illini Drive right here on WPGU 1071.
You're watching Illini Drive on Urbana Public Television. Tune in Monday nights at 6 p.m. to listen live on WPGU 1071.
Welcome back to Illini Drive. Here is your score update. In hockey, the Chicago Blackhawks fell to the LA Kings 3-1. They faced the Washington Capitals Wednesday at 7 o'clock. And in basketball, the Chicago Bulls face the Cleveland Cavaliers today at 7 p.m.
Bulls Cavs, yeah.
Nobody cares.
Blackhawks also are just progressively getting worse. It's been a rough fall for Chicago
Being ignorant.
sports. No, but it's been tough. All right, Bulls Cavs tonight. How many points did the Bulls win by?
I'm gonna say 15.
What makes you think the Bulls are going to win tonight?
Because they always do that. They always
Yeah, I
have.
know.
I know exactly what he's talking about.
Is the game on TNT?
No, it's
I don't think they have any
Monday.
games on
But
TNT.
but
this
it's
season.
still the Cavs. Like they always show up for the Cavs, and it makes no sense.
And we're on a 11-game winning streak right now.
Lori
so-
Markkinen.
Lowry's about to body LeBron tonight.
He's about to drop 40.
Give it to me. I need it.
We'll see. But we're gonna move
I
on
need Bobby
to
Portis to go Nikola Mirotic on LeBron's face. That needs punching, folks.
not happening. Let's go to our final thoughts now. We'll start off with Jake with a little baseball. The Stanton Ohtani sweepstakes are starting to heat up. Jake's been following all the sources, and how's this all going to play out? Things are starting to get a little bit closer. What do you think's going to happen?
I know we had all that information just hitting us. I mean, it just came back to back to back all over the weekend, and it feels like we're standing at the finish line, but just haven't crossed it yet. But I mean, I feel like Ohtani. I still think Seattle, and Giancarlo. I don't know. It's so weird.
No one knows.
I mean, now LA made a trade offer to him too.
What was the offer? We
don't know what the details were, but just that they submitted one. So now it's between San Fran, LA, and St. Louis. It sounds like I heard Boston was out, but I mean, it depends on which ones Miami agrees to, and then Stan has to agree too. So it's just very stressful, and I'm over it because nobody else is going to sign now until those two go. So JD Martinez isn't going to sign until those guys have Ohtani and Stan both have a home. Hosmer, Moustakas, Kane, all those guys. They're just waiting around now, waiting for the market to be set.
Trying to be unbiased with the Cardinals offer, because it seems like the Cardinals are offering more money, but the Giants are kind of offering the better package. Would you agree with that?
Disagree. Hard disagree.
Really?
I don't like. I think the Giants package that they offered is trash.
I mean, Joe Panic, a couple of prospects, and $250 million.
Joe Panic's okay. I mean, Christian Arroyo, I think, will be good. I think Bede was the other one, the pitching prospect. I mean, those guys are okay. I think Arroyo was the only one who was a top 100. I mean, the Cardinals have like 5 top 100 guys, and Tyler O'Neill, I think, was 101 or 102. So it's just, I think the Cardinals have more money, and I think they also have far better prospects. But it's just the whole, does he want to play in St. Louis thing, which seems to be no, but I have no idea. And that's preposterous. If he rejects a deal, I mean, to me it doesn't make sense to go to San Francisco because they're a worse team. They're not set up well for the future at all. I mean, he's not, and they're in the hardest division. I mean, you got 3 legitimate World Series contenders in that division as it is. One team that just came off a World Series appearance. Makes no sense.
Maybe he'd just rather live in San Francisco.
Right. Well, that makes no sense to me. I mean, if he goes to LA, I get it because again, they're coming off a World Series.
If he was on the Dodgers,
yeah,
they'd win 110 games.
Yeah, I mean,
the Dodgers.
With
Stanton.
I don't necessarily think so because they'd have to give up a lot to get him.
They have good prospects though. They wouldn't have to give up any of their major league talent.
Yeah.
I mean, other than Jock Peterson. Maybe.
I mean, the real question is who gets out of the starting lineup in the outfield between the likes of Puig and Chris Taylor and Peterson and Ethier, whoever else is in the
They
outfield.
could easily throw Taylor in at second base or something.
Yeah, Ethier is a free agent too. He's gone.
Yeah.
So I mean, and I'm assuming one of Puig or Peterson would be going back to Miami in a hypothetical trade. Probably Jock Peterson.
Probably, yeah. That would make the most sense.
A team with Stanton and Puig would be electric.
Yeah, that'd be pretty crazy. If the Dodgers got Giancarlo Stanton, it seems like his dream would come true of playing for the Dodgers, and I guess every Dodgers fan's dream would come true because them winning the World Series would seem like it would be no problem in 2018.
And don't forget, Giancarlo Stanton once hit a ball out of Dodger Stadium, so
could see a lot more of those if he plays 82 games there, assuming he's healthy the whole season, which he usually is. So yeah, the Stanton Ohtani sweepstakes are starting.
One time he broke his face. Yeah. That was brutal.
As the Stanton Ohtani sweepstakes start to heat up, Tiger Woods was heating up on the golf course this past weekend. Tommy wanted to talk a little bit about that. Shot 9 under, played pretty well.
8 under, right?
8 under, yeah.
Oh, it was 8 under.
Tiger Woods is so back. It's really happy to say that it is December now of 2017, and we can officially say that Tiger Woods is back.
He played so well.
He looked amazing.
3 out of those 4 days, he played so well.
Yeah, and it's not a matter of he just kind of scrapped through, and obviously this was more or less an exhibition in terms of golf, but I mean, he looked good and competed with the top names in golf all over the world.
Spieth, Fowler.
Yeah.
DJ.
I mean, he looked very good. He looked comfortable in his swing. He didn't look like he was forcing anything.
The new swing looks a lot smoother and like less
Yeah,
aggressive on his body.
And he's still putting out there 300.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, he's still bombing.
Yeah, he's still hitting 340. I mean,
it's so good for golf.
yeah. Oh, it's unbelievable for golf. That you can have Tiger Woods get all that hype. He plays well, and then you still have guys like Ricky Fowler won it still, and still have hype around those guys. It's amazing. I mean, it's so good. I mean, Tiger. I mean, he's going to say at the next tournament that was average for him. Like that's what he's going to expect every day.
Yeah.
I mean, he played really well. Irons and off the tee was awesome. Short game was but
you could tell. Like I remember watching his first round. There was one chip where I saw him where he was just outside of the green in 2, and he kind of just like almost like thinned it a little bit and just.
That was the one before the putt off the fringe. Yeah,
right.
That same thing. Yeah, he flubbed a little bit. I mean, but short game and putting is always the last thing to come back. So.
Right. I mean, the fact that he's sitting out there comfortably driving, hitting long irons is huge.
I think 2018 is going to be a heck of a golf year.
It's the best time.
I'm
to be a
telling
golf
you,
fan.
Tiger wins the Masters.
It's such a good time to be a golf fan right now.
You cannot look at if you watched him play, and I watched him every day for at least some portion of the time. You cannot look at him and say that he doesn't have a chance to win the Masters.
I think he does. I mean, if he keeps this up, he's still got a long way to go before, but we'll see. Well, I mean, golf
So exciting.
Really
So love it.
kicks off.
Big time moves.
Yeah. With our last 10 minutes left, I think it's safe to say we can talk about the thing that everyone's been debating about over the last 24, 36 hours. The college football playoff decision came in yesterday. We will have a rematch of the national championship from the last 2 years in the Sugar Bowl. Clemson's going to play Bama. And in the Rose Bowl, we're going to have Oklahoma and Georgia. So at least we'll have one team that's never made the college football playoff national championship make it in Oklahoma or Georgia. But we'll see Bama in it for the third straight time, or we'll see Clemson in it for the third straight time. The debate's about the fourth team. Did Bama deserve it?
I mean, as a Big Ten guy, I would have liked to see Ohio State in there. I know one thing I talked to Tommy about just the other day is why no love for UCF, the only undefeated team in the country. I mean, part of that, the problem is, I mean, they had a weak schedule, but
Just lost their coach, too.
yeah, but like, I don't know.
UCF, how
it's
is
kind of
UCF
getting.
not in the top
It's a
10?
little boring
They
seeing
should be in
Alabama
the
every
top
single
10.
How are
year.
they not in the top 10? I understand. I didn't think they should have had playoff consideration necessarily. They're a good team. I don't think they're there, considering they're playing the AAC. But they should be in the top
No, they should be in the top 10.
7 to 8 teams, I think.
Not 7 to 8. I think 10th, because they should not be ranked higher
I think
than
they're
Penn
going to
State.
roll Auburn.
I think they'll beat Auburn, too.
I think they're going to like handily beat Auburn.
Yeah, that's going to be the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl. I believe that's also happening on New Year's Day, the same day as the semifinals. I think UCF should be 10th. I don't think Miami should still be a top 10 team after
Miami
these two
stinks.
losses.
I can't wait for when we have an
Miami's
8-team playoff. When we have all five,
That's
we
gonna
have
be
5
really good.
Yeah,
at-large bids. And
that's where the whole
3
discussion-
at-large bids for 5, conference champions. I think that'd make for a real. And then you really get to see like some fun matchups.
No, I would love an 8-team playoff, but it really gets complicated with the scheduling because you really have to look into. It's such a gray area for when those games would be happening. You could do it in mid-December when a lot of students of these schools are getting ready for winter break and finals and all that. Or you can do it in later January when you're going to try and compete with the NFL playoffs. So it gets really complicated with the way the scheduling is done. I mean, if they did decide an 8-team playoff, I think they would have to move the season up a week or two, start in mid-August, maybe get a game in before students come back in for school, so that way they could get the national championship in and the beginning of December. That way, that's really the marquee thing to look at, but it gets really complicated.
I think beyond just scheduling, I don't think there's 8 teams that could genuinely compete for a national championship on any given year.
I think this year there definitely is.
I don't think there is.
If you put the top 8 teams in a bracket, you'd get some good games. It'd be Clemson v. USC, Oklahoma against Auburn, Georgia v. Wisconsin, Bama against Ohio State. Tell me that's not a great quarterfinals.
Do 6 and have the first 2 get a bye.
Yeah, so in that case,
I think 4 is the right number. I do.
I
I've
think
been back and forth on it before. I think 4 is the right number, though. I just think that obviously there's been a lot of teams that have been up and down this year. I mean, Notre Dame was as high as 3. I was very hopeful for them, but I mean, realistically, I mean, they could not have competed for national championship. Penn State could have, I think, maybe could have been in that conversation. Ohio State obviously could have made it. 6, okay, maybe I could see that, but I think that, again, it's just the schedule issues that could create becomes too much. And I think that 4, considering you don't have to more or less change too much, the other schedule is worth it.
and it's interesting because everyone discusses how the political move of the college football playoff would be to put Ohio State in to get that Big Ten team and sort of expand the market. I still think the more political move was putting Bama in because you have to have Bama in the playoff.
I think that was more of a political move, yeah.
I
think
disagree.
More than if they put Ohio State in.
Because just for
I mean, if you're talking straight politics in terms of viewers and rankings and stuff, you throw in Ohio State, you get all of the Big Ten audience because they're saying, okay, you have the Big Ten represented. If you go to Bama, I mean, obviously there's a huge fan base for Bama considering their recent success, but the SEC's already got their team. They could care less if another team gets in.
I mean, I'm just thinking of the area of where all these teams are at. You got Clemson in South Carolina, Alabama, Georgia, Oklahoma. It's it's really in one specific area of the country. It's pretty much the South. It's 4 teams in the South, and then you have Oklahoma, which is kind of South, but more sort of Central America. Well, not Central America, the continent, the center part of the United States, I mean.
Midwest?
Yeah, well, it's not Midwest either. Oklahoma's not Midwest, not even close. But
Oklahoma's not Midwest.
Yeah.
What do you consider it? What part of the United States?
Oklahoma is in the center of the United States. It's in the likes of Kansas and Nebraska, sort of like Texas, but Texas sort of like the mixture of the central United States.
I wouldn't consider it the Midwest. I guess I don't know what you consider it. I wouldn't consider it Midwest, though.
I think all 4 of these teams, though, are in such close proximity to each other. I think we'll get there'll be decent audiences for this game, but they're not going to be so great. But they need to be good games.
Do you really think that, because to me, I don't think where a team is based affects something like a college football playoff that much. Because to me, they hype it all year, and you follow it all year, even if it's a team you love to hate. I mean, it's like you're going to get a ton of people hate watching Bama.
Well, but here's the question, though. I mean, this is kind of sort of leaning into maybe Ohio State would be more the political move, but a casual Big Ten fan, you got the Big Ten Conference spans from Ohio to Michigan and now all the way over to New York City and Washington, D.C. Casual Big Ten fan, do they tune in to the playoffs?
Yeah, because I think if you're a casual Big Ten fan, that means you're a casual football fan too.
Well, I'm talking super casual. They only watch maybe they watch 2 or 3 Big Ten games a year. They just watch their own team. Do they tune in for Oklahoma and Georgia, 2 teams they haven't watched all season? I mean, that's what it.
No, but I don't think that would. Then if they're that casual fan, I don't think that they're watching if it's Ohio State then either.
I think they would watch it.
If they're that casual that they're only watching 2 or 3 of their own games, I don't think you're getting those people anyway. I don't think you're getting those fans anyway.
Yeah,
I don't think that matters.
The bottom line is if they'll be good games. Clemson and Bama have played 2 phenomenal games in the last 2 national championships. I think this year.
I think that's also part of it. The three-peat is a huge storyline now. The three, like chapter 3, volume 3 of this matchup.
Yeah,
I think
round
that was
3,
a huge
Bama v. Clemson. People are going to love that. I'm more excited for the Oklahoma-Georgia game. You got high-powered offense against really good defense. Baker Mayfield, Nick Chubb, a lot of names in that game. But also some of these other New Year's Six Bowls are going to be phenomenal. Ohio State, USC, that's going to be a great game. Love seeing Ohio State playing USC. Penn State, Washington, Nittany Lions are going to smoke them.
That's not even going to be a close game.
Penn State's going to destroy them. Orange Bowl, Wisconsin v. Miami. Badgers, I think, will run over them and prove to everyone that they're really not as overrated as everyone thinks they are after they lost in the Big Ten Championship, which, by the way, the true hero of that game was Turf Guy, who just ran in there, poured all those pellets in. It became an internet sensation.
That was the literal mirror image of the scene from The Office where Kevin drops the chili.
Yeah, pretty much.
It was literally a mirror image.
Basically.
You just know that guy was waiting for that moment his entire life.
He's waiting for his moment all
See, now if you're him, if I'm him, I'm sweating. I'm like, I know everybody's looking at me right now.
70,000 people are watching him fix
I'm about
turf.
to be like a meme.
Right, I'm sweating if that's me.
He became a sensation.
I think was electric.
That always happens.
Yeah.
There was Red Lightning from a couple years ago. There's always that one guy that
there's always that one guy
captures the
every
hearts of
2
America.
years. Notre Dame's playing LSU in the Citrus Bowl. That could be an okay game. Should be interesting.
Coach on a big stage.
Geis v. Adams.
Where's the Citrus Bowl at? Is that in Miami?
I think it's.
How are they gonna make Notre Dame
it's
go
in
back to
Tampa.
Miami?
Yeah, it's in Tampa maybe.
That's good.
So
Great market.
Outback Bowl, Michigan, South Carolina. Northwestern's going to play in the Franklin American Music City
Northwestern
Bowl.
playing?
Northwestern's playing Kentucky. in their bowl
Okay.
game.
It's a gross game.
That is a very gross game.
I don't like that game. I'm not watching that.
Alamo Bowl, Stanford v. TCU. Holiday Bowl, Michigan State against Washington State. Military Bowl, Navy v. Virginia. I'm just spouting out some of the ones that pop out to
Can
me.
we talk about those Navy jerseys last week?
Very cool.
Hot.
They're going to play in them Saturday.
Phenomenal.
Is the
Army
Kraft
game.
Fight Hunger Bowl still a thing?
The Kraft Fight Hunger Bowl is not still a thing. I do
Darn.
not see
It's
it.
unfortunate.
Something that is very noticeable to me, though, and just crazy. In the Walk-Ons Independence Bowl, a game that's considered not a big bowl game, Southern Miss is playing Florida State. That's sad. Florida State got relegated to the Independence Bowl after playing in New Year's Six games for the last, 5 years.
That is sad.
Yeah.
And they just lost Jimbo now. It's just going downhill.
I mean,
His contract, by the way, is preposterous.
yeah, I
How
honestly...
long is it again? What is it?
10 years
10
or something. It's like 10-year contract.
10 years for how much?
Like 70
$75
million.
Good for Jimbo. I mean, what
That's
the beak.
Unreal.
Paying him a
That's
lot of money.
absurd.
I mean,
There's no way
At the
that comes
same
back to
time,
bite them.
There's no way that I couldn't believe he left. There's no way A&M is a better job than Florida State.
No, I don't think so.
no.
You think it's even close? I don't think. It's
I don't
even-
I
think
don't
it's
think it's
close.
even close, but because the SEC is a better conference, that's the only
That's
way I
true.
could see Texas A&M
Florida
being a
State's
better job.
a year-to-year powerhouse.
Yeah, but the ACC's not very good.
SEC's not bad.
Besides
right now.
Florida State, Clemson, and
Oh,
Virginia
Clemson, the
Tech.
team that's in 3 straight national
Yeah,
championships.
but
they're
that's
not that good.
That's one team.
That's-
in the
I
whole
get
NC
what you're
State's
saying.
good. NC State's good right now.
I think
UNC's
he's saying
been good
overall
recently.
it's weaker, which I kind of agree with.
I mean, the lower
disagree.
teams,
I think
the
they've been
lower
very
teams in the
I,
ACC suck.
I do think though I'm with you though that A&M's a worse job though.
It is,
It's
yeah.
smaller. It's smaller, and it's just they're not going to get the pull that he had at Florida State.
I think you're undervaluing the ACC.
The reason I think the ACC is worse is because their lower teams are beyond bad.
Like who?
Okay, well, Virginia had a period where they were awful, awful. Boston College is terrible.
I'm with you. The ACC is coming I guess back.
Yeah.
They are getting more mid-level
Wake
teams.
Forest is
that-
a legit solid team this year.
Yeah,
I mean,
they're
you look
playing
at UNC,
A&M,
who's
yeah.
usually good. They produce Mitchell. NC State's good right now.
Well, and I guess if you throw $75 million at anyone, they'll go. I'd go wherever you want.
he went for the $75 million.
I'd go to Ohio for $75
Also,
million.
I'm sure.
Go get your money.
I'm sure in that job interview, the Texas A&M AD or wherever said, "Jimbo, this is your chance to take down Nick Saban, make Texas A&M the premier SEC football school," and he's going to try and do that. I think that's a huge selling point.
How long until they get a good team though? Because they don't.
It's
have,
Texas A&M. They have plenty of people to recruit. It's in middle. It's
in Texas.
Besides TCU, they're the second best football program in Texas right now, ahead of the Longhorns, ahead of Baylor. TCU is the best football program, but Texas A&M is more attractive because they're in the SEC. A chance to try and take Nick Saban's throne and put Texas A&M in the playoff. That's a good prospect, especially with Florida State having this bad of a season as they had. And everyone thought in week 1, Bama v. Florida State, winner wins the national championship, and Florida State's playing in the Independence Bowl against Southern Miss. Crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Did I sell you?
No, A&M's still a stinky job compared to
Yeah.
Florida
No.
State.
I'm still A&M's definitely still a worse job, but
Yeah.
you're selling me on the SEC, ACC a little bit more.
Yeah.
But I'm
I
still leaning
I
towards
mean,
ACC.
Texas. Is it College Station?
College Station.
College stations are cool.
12th man. It's a great venue.
Yeah, my dad almost went there. It was between that and Georgia Tech. Texas A&M's a cool school. I like it a lot.
It's a cool. I don't know. I just feel like
Florida State. and
Florida
Cal-
State.
yeah.
I think
Tallahassee.
Yeah.
I think that's considered more or less between college coaches as maybe a top.
It's a top 10 job, maybe.
I would say as much as
Yeah.
top 3
Oh.
almost. Even.
Not top 3.
Why? Who's your top 3 jobs?
I'd say probably Bama, USC, and Ohio State.
And Michigan's probably ahead.
Michigan is ahead of.
I'd rather coach at Florida State than Michigan.
No.
Yeah, I'm with you on that.
Michigan, the program with the most wins in college football history.
One. Yeah.
Yeah,
but
because they've been around since
forever.
history.
Yeah.
I mean,
And the Jordan gear. I mean, that's pretty special.
yeah, but being in Florida versus
big
being
house.
in Ann Arbor, Michigan.
Ann Arbor's nice. It's a nice place.
Yeah, it gets real cold on there. In Ann
Yeah,
Arbor.
Tallahassee gets real humid.
It's not bad.
Damp.
Yeah, Florida recruits usually do pretty well, huh?
Yeah.
I think I'd rather coach at the U than FSU.
I wouldn't right now. Right now, maybe it's
Right
kinda
now,
bad, but
yeah.
I think.
Right. Yeah. Right now, but I think objectively, I think
And again, we're saying right
that
now
one's close.
they're no longer than 4 years removed from a national championship.
Right. Yeah. That's true.
We'll continue having
that
this
was that
debate.
long ago.
maybe on Wednesday. We're running out of time here. For Jake, for Tommy, for Will,
so.
I'm Ori Benatar. Thank you for joining us here on Illini Drive as these guys still discuss the best jobs. We'll probably be discussing this more after the show. Be sure to tune in for another edition tomorrow at 6 p.m. right here on WPGU 107.1.